Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Abilene People. I'm your host, Danny Sims, and this is on bigcountryhomepage.com, where we have conversations regularly with Abilene's most interesting people. We really couldn't find one of those today, so we had to go with Donna Albus. I don't even think it's a question. If there's a top three Abilene's most interesting people, Donna Albus is in the top three. How are you?
I am fabulous. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, so good to have you. Okay, Donna, so we're going to talk about all kinds of things.
Okay.
I want to start with, is it true that you are the greatest female athlete and maybe greatest athlete ever in Knox City High School history? Is it true?
Well, I don't think we can go that far. I was a very involved individual in, I guess, every sport that was allowed except football.
Yeah. Did you play basketball back in the days when it was 3-on-3 on each side of the court? Or
are you trying to age me now,
I remember
Danny?
it. I remember
Okay.
it. I remember it well.
I was forward. At 5'2", I was high point forward.
Does that mean you scored or you were on defense?
No, I was forward. I shot.
Yeah. Okay.
I scored.
Yeah.
And most of my shots were from the top of the key, which would now be three-pointers.
Three-pointer.
Not back in the day. They were just two.
Were you decent? Did you hit a lot of shots?
Well, hello. Who are you talking to?
Okay, and you have a grandson who's a professional baseball player, so he must get it all from you, right?
Well, you think that you're not on my top list, but you interviewed him last, so you must be all right. Man, I don't care what Myra says.
That guy, let me tell you, that guy, man, that Donna Albus is something else.
Isn't he a neat guy?
Oh, man, he's a really...
You know, he is a good, I say kid, he is a good young man. Yeah. In addition to being a great athlete.
Yeah, apparently that dude is both.
Yeah.
And that's my impression. And then we're also going to have his dad, your son, Damon, on the podcast pretty quick.
Well, I
Looking
think
forward
he's
to that.
Pretty okay, too.
Looking forward to that. Okay, but you were a great athlete. You were, by anybody's measurement. I mean, look, I think we established you played basketball, and I think you did the track team, and you did pretty much everything you could do.
That's one thing I can't claim very. You know, they put this girl on hurdles.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And then expected me to win.
Well,
now,
you were all of what? What'd you say, 5'2" tall?
Yeah. And, well, it's kind of like one coach described Damon one time, said he just runs a little too long in between the hurdles.
Gotcha. Well said. I like it. I like it a lot.
Now, I was setter on the volleyball team, went to state in tennis. So...
You did good. I
was all right.
You were all right. Now, you were one of 7 children. Is that right?
I was. I wasn't the first boy, and I wasn't the first girl. I just was.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And my high school principal told my dad one time I was twice as much trouble as my older brother and sister put together.
Yeah. Well,
surprise.
Fair enough. Maybe we should go back and interview the high school principal if we could. Stories that could be told from Knox City, Texas. Okay, when you came to Abilene, you at one time either worked for or owned Tom's Snacks, but I think the gold story is that you were the first female delivery person for Tom's Snacks. You were called the Candy Lady or the Candy Man. Is that right?
They even called me the Candy Man.
Yeah.
And I was the first female delivery person in Texas, the second in the nation. But after people started seeing that my part-time route outsold the full-time route, all of a sudden they thought maybe women had a talent at this.
So did you face, how can I put it? Maybe I shouldn't even try to put it in any
challenges.
There we go. That's nice.
Yes,
that's a nice way to say it.
I know.
Because men are just jerks sometimes, and they think, well, a woman shouldn't be doing this job. Did you ever run into that?
Constantly ask or challenge that I was out stealing some man's job. And I said, you know, if you would call 677-5270 and give him your qualifications, perhaps you can have this job. But right now it's mine. And then I was asked, how does a woman get a job like this? And I would say, well, I don't know about you, but I sleep with the boss every night. And then I'd walk away.
But you did pretty good. Again, you're a pretty good athlete. You're a pretty good candy man.
I was a good candy
you
man.
did have a part-time route that outsold some of the full-timers, right?
Absolutely, I did.
Yeah.
Those people weren't just my customers, they were my friends. And I always made them check when I brought in the inventory, let's check it together. Oh, no, we trust you. And I'm like, no, we're going to go over this. This is protection for you and for me.
You know, in a previous life, I knew you as a fundraiser and a helper and a volunteer in the nonprofit world because our mutual friend, your dear friend, Myra Dean, who's been on the podcast, introduced me to you. And she said, this is one of the most naturally gifted fundraisers you'll ever meet. And I quickly saw that that's true. And I think it was your position that really fundraising is friend raising. And I think that's true of sales too. Right? It's about building relationships.
Certainly. You're selling yourself before you ever sell your product, whether it be for a nonprofit or whether it be an item.
Yeah. And so after your success doing the business, because you eventually bought the business, I think, and then I would assume at some point you sold the business. And then you really move into what most people know you for, which is your volunteer work, your civic involvement, and boy, oh boy, I started looking at the list. I mean, there's no way we could possibly list it all, but let me see if I can get a few from one of the many articles we can find about Donna Albus online. I mean, listen, Abilene Rotary Club, Swenson House, Abilene Convention and Visitors Bureau Board, past president of said, West Central Texas Council of Governments Executive Board. And you even at some point in time found the time to give tours of the city to visitors to our city. How did you have time for all of this? And how did you evolve into that? Or did you just one day decide, look, I'm going to do all this because I can do it and nobody else is? How did all that come to be?
Well, when I moved to Abilene, the Paramount was my first volunteer job. I loved that building, and I loved the thought of having it part of our history. And then I got involved with PTA, and here's another one for you. When I got to junior high, a man could be president. Now, a woman could in elementary, but once you got to junior high, only a man could preside until they talked me into taking over Franklin PTA.
And so you took it over. Well, who would possibly stand in your way?
So Elmer Wright was a good friend, but he had kind of a reputation in this town about being a little hard-nosed, and I might have had an opinion or two, and so people were kind of holding their breath. And at the very first PTA meeting, we played to a packed house because I thought if a kid sneezed and did a good job, they needed to be recognized. And so that brought in their parents and their grandparents and their neighbors. And so traditionally, there had only just been a smattering, but here we are playing to a full house. And I told them all that Mr. Wright and I did not always agree, but we were always agreeable.
Boy, if you could potion that in a bottle and pour it out all over the place, how gold would that be today?
Whoa, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, if we could just learn that skill, that's so important. And you get involved in the Abilene Preservation League, where your claim to fame is the Grace Hotel, but maybe also kind of the Paramount too. I don't know if you were involved in the restoration of the Paramount.
No, I was only a volunteer there. It was pretty well on the way by the time I came to town in 1968. I'm so excited, Danny. People are almost starting to accept me.
Maybe, Maybe
pretty nice.
Maybe you'll find your niche here in Abilene.
Before long.
When you were with the Preservation League, though, you set out not singularly alone, with some help, but you said this historic hotel needs to be saved.
Oh, Frank Murray was our leader extraordinaire. I call him oh, goodness gracious. What's the guy that was over all the mice? He
Oh,
played
yeah, the Pied Piper.
Pied Piper. I said, Frank was our Pied Piper.
Yeah.
We were his mice.
Well,
And he did an amazing job, and we bought into it. Mary Gill and the Dodge Foundation, it was a lot of players, but it was Frank's dream, and he was the leader.
we would not have the Grace Museum today if it were not for Mr. Murray and you
Absolutely.
and your efforts.
Absolutely. In fact, the City Fathers wanted to move the museum over by the conference center because they wanted plenty of parking. And my theory was more people would go to that building to see the building as they would the artwork inside. And it did take on many different face changes through the project. It initially was just going to restore one floor, and then it was 2 floors. And then we pulled the museum into it, convincing them that they wanted to move from a 5,000 square foot building into a 55,000 square foot building. I still get emotional thinking about it.
It's incredible.
And they said yes. Well, we were going to the Preservation League and the museum were going to coexist until Meadows Foundation said that'll never work, that one of you has got to walk away. And so after we raised the brick and mortar money, the Preservation League walked away from it and left it to the museum.
So the legacy is the legacy of that hard work is the countless number of people and children that go to that museum on a regular basis who don't even know. They don't even know the hard work. That's how it happens, right?
Right.
A lot of hard work underneath for what people enjoy today.
We couldn't even start out at ground zero. We had to build to ground zero and then go on and raise the money to restore the building and to get a little bit of excess money so that it would have an opportunity to continue to be run.
And when you're involved in all of that at the time, it's a lot of work, and most of the work is unseen. I mean, there's times where you celebrate achievements, and we reached a milepost, and then once it's completed, and people applaud, and then the applause goes away. But when you're involved in it, did you realize back then how significant it was?
Not really. It's just a passion. And I seem to have a real flair for getting involved in things that nobody knows. I can't tell you how many people said, "What is the Grace?" Because it was the Drake.
Yeah.
And so to go back to the Grace, and the reason it was Drake is because they could change 2 letters in the name to make it Drake. And so to go back to Grace, and we did find the Grace living in Lubbock while we're working on the building.
Oh, you mean the original sign, or
the original person? Her father named the building after her.
Oh my goodness!
Yes, and so she was able to come when we had the grand opening.
How have I missed this story? So you found the original Grace.
We think she was 16 whenever her father named the building after her.
And those of us that do remember the season of time, it was called the Drake. It was horribly run down.
Right.
And high schoolers and mischievous college students, I may or may not have one time been one, would sneak inside and, people would be living short term in there, and it was just a wreck. And to see it today, again, somebody that doesn't know, they just don't know.
Tell you the talent I have. I swept that whole thing with a big commercial broom.
Wow.
Because Frank was giving tours to everybody, and we'd done demolition investigation to see what was underneath all of those things that had been added over the year. And I'm like, Frank, Somebody's going to fall down and get hurt here. You can't be taking tours through this building. And he said, well, Donna, we worked so well together. He was very calm, low key, and just kept pulling things out. He'd get started on this venture and that venture, and it was just constantly. And I'd say, I can't get everything done until you do something else. And he'd say, well, Donna.
Yeah. And I think probably a lot of people have said, well, Donna told me, maybe different than Mr. Murray did. Okay, so after the Grace, there was a time where you were really invested in the Abilene Clean and Proud, and the Abilene Clean and Proud brought a whole lot of attention to Abilene in ways that we can talk about. One thing I want to make sure we mention is ultimately you won the Lady Bird Johnson National Award through all of your work through Keep America Beautiful. And that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. Has any other Abilenian ever won that national award? I don't think so.
I don't believe so.
That's pretty incredible. But your claim to fame is the crape myrtles that we see that bloom so beautifully in the spring and summer. But you had a campaign. I think you totally came up with it. Maybe there's somebody else that was involved. I don't know. But it was Myrtles Coming, Get Your Bed Ready. And it was a Victorian lady, a silhouette. And I don't know that it was suggestive, and I don't know that it wasn't. It was a double entendre, but it was a lot of fun. But it got a lot of attention. And then all of a sudden, momentum goes, and I don't know how many people bought crepe myrtles, but you planted, I don't know, thousands of them. So give us the 10,000 foot overview of that story.
Okay. The mayor was McCaleb at the time, and he wanted Abilene to be the crepe myrtle capital of Texas. Well, there are quite a few, but I said, Mayor, I'm a one-man office. I work with volunteers. So Janet Arduino and I went to a Keep Texas Beautiful conference in Irving. And there, Ada, Oklahoma, for crying out loud, had given away 5,000 daffodil bulbs. And we decided if they could give away 5, we could sell 10. So we sold 10,000, and then we ordered another 10,000. We, of course, had the local group helping. And then we ordered another 5,000, and we were at a nonprofit showcase at Hardin Simmons, and Janet passes out. Now, she already has a heart monitor, and she has to be recessed by a student. They take her to the hospital, and they put a defibrillator on her. So she says she can honestly say that she was a Church of Christ saved by a Baptist.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love it.
So with that success under our belt, I thought, okay, now we can try the crepe myrtles. So I had to get a new chair because I tried to kill the last one. And Cindy Moore came on, and she wanted to order 5,000 crepe myrtles. I'm like, Cindy, we are a poor nonprofit. We can only afford 1,000. Well, we finally came to a compromise. See that wonderful word of compromise. And we were going to order 3,000, but we would need to pre-sale. So that started the campaign. We contacted the electric media and the print media and said, hey, at the end of your articles, your stories, would you promote Myrtle's Coming, Get Your Bed Ready? So they all did. Then came the billboard, like you described, and it was a Victorian lady with a dress from her neck all the way down to her feet. And it said, Myrtle's Coming, Get Your Bed Ready. One woman took exception, and she called the print media, and she called the electric media, and the city manager was Roy McDaniel at the time, called me in, and he said, Donna, I have just had a phone call from this woman, and she says that your billboard has got sexual innuendo. And in my normal, reserved manner, I said, "Good Lord, Roy." So I get a call from the TVs, and they say, "I'm sorry, but we've got to run this story." And the Abilene Reporter News called, and they said, "Donna, I'm sorry, but we've got to run this story." I was in Leadership, Texas at that time. And so on Saturday, I started getting phone calls from all over the state. What is going on in Abilene? And before it was all said and done, we heard from every state in the union. An internet magazine out of New York ran the story. We heard from Toronto, Canada, Sydney, Australia. There was another foreign country we heard from. We sold 8,369 crepe myrtles and would have sold more, but the growers ran out of plant life. This was October. Who sells crepe myrtles in October? Nobody.
So this lady thought that she would shut you down, and it exploded. It became maybe Abilene's first viral moment.
Yes. I mean, the colleges bought them to go on their campuses. Golf courses bought them to go in their on their greens, their fairways. And one man over here on the south side, his daughter had passed away, and so he bought them for his entire neighborhood if they would plant them in their front yards. It's memory of his daughter. People that didn't have a place to plant them would buy them, and that's how they come to be along the railroad right of way at all of those little intersections.
In the old traffic circle, the
Yes.
confluence down with Treadway Boulevard and MLK
Right.
Bridge, Highway 80, and all of that. There's a bunch there. Those came from this effort.
Right. And then the second year, we sold 5,000, and the next year they sold 3,000. I was already gone by then because the president at the rehab, who served on my board, came and he said, "We want you to come to the rehab." And I'm like, "No, I like what I'm doing. Why don't you hire Janet? Because she has a son that's gone there and knows your value, and she would be a great ambassador for you." He said, "No, we want you." And he said, "What would it take to get you?" And I thought, we'll end this conversation. So I told him, and he said, "Okay." And I'm like, oh
no.
my lands, what do I do now? So I promised him 1 year, and I was there 16. So
16 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah.
You were at the rehab.
Yeah.
16.
I
Wow.
was.
Wow. Well, and so we've got you as Candy Lady. We've got you as the not the only cog, but the big cog behind the Grace Hotel. You made all that work. Now we've got you with the crepe myrtles and the Myrtles Come and Get Your Bed Ready campaign. You won the national award for the Lady Bird Johnson Keep America Beautiful Award, and you've been a 2-time Abilene City Councilwoman. And I think you would say, in fact, you have said that your kind of claim to fame or the hook that you hang one of your many hats on regarding the your tenure as a city councilwoman is the DoubleTree by Hilton Abilene Downtown Convention Center Hotel.
It is amazing. You know, if that hotel never rented one room, it's already way paid for itself.
Yeah, I've heard you say that before.
Yes.
In the past. What do you mean by that?
Because it has inspired people to come in and invest in not just downtown Abilene, but all over Abilene, because it shows that we're forward thinking. It pulls in conventions from other towns that promotes our town. And it has just really been a real instigator in bringing Abilene to the forefront.
Well, and the transparency is important. I've got to say, I'm hotel positive, but I don't know if you know this, but there have been detractors.
Really?
Yeah. There have been people that have thought it was a boondoggle,
Uh-huh.
that the city should have never been involved. And of course, it's easy for me to say today I'm positive because it's proven to be a pretty big success, and they have rented at least one room. We know because recently I think it's pretty tough to even get a room there with the boom that's currently going on in Abilene. But there's so much that's happening downtown, and you've got to feel a certain degree of ownership for that and pride for that.
I told those boys that I served on the council with, they can thank me now or they can thank me later, that had I left, they would not have had that hotel because it took all 7 of us working to make it happen. And of course, there was Stan Lambert that was in there pushing and helping us get the money to make it a success. So there were a lot of players, but if any one of those cogs would have gotten out of the link, it wouldn't have happened.
You know, I think that I've got another quote I want to give here if I can, where you talk about when you ran for city council, somebody asked you why, and you said, well, I've been invested in Abilene for many, many years, another opportunity to try to make my city the best that she can be, and I think I can make a difference. And here's what I want to get to. You said, I think I could bring a woman's point of view when the population is 49.5% female and we have no representation. We just need that point of view. You said that your father said there was no hurdle too high that we could never get over, and that was a lesson that you took to heart. I failed at a few things, but it gave me that much more push to go on and take the next cause. But boy, you won twice. You didn't ever fail in your political career. Again, you got to feel a sense of pride. I'm sure you don't just pause a whole lot and pat yourself on the back, but you did really well. And you were at the time the only female council member, right? Abilene's only councilwoman. I guess not historically ever, but at that time.
No, we have had a sprinkling, a smattering,
but currently
of women. None right now. And we really need, it has been amazing since I got off council how many men have come up to me and said, we miss you on the council. And I find that to be pretty gratifying.
So you've brought up something a couple of times, and we've had a little fun with it, but I think it's a pretty serious conversation. Collaboration, cooperation, and compromise. It's kind of been an earmark of your brand, your vibe. I mean, you're not afraid of giving your opinion, but you want everybody to sit down at the table together and get along. What do you think just about maybe take it away from Abilene and maybe generalized just nationally? What do you think about the temperature of American culture and American politics today?
I'm very concerned about it. I think we all need to sit down and be able to express our views and come to a compromise. I used to have a neighbor that agreed with everything I said, and I would leave her house and wonder, what does Barbara really think? Because no one can agree with you 100% of the time. We're just not made that way. And if you disagree with me, then it gives me 2 opportunities. I can change my mind, or I can delve into why I made that statement or had that thought and really come to a good conclusion of why that is the best thing or the best way to proceed. So if you constantly surround yourself with yes people, how do you grow? You're stagnant. And so I just think that we have got to be able to have discourse with each other and be civil. I told my boys years ago, you can say anything to anybody as long as your tone is civil. And I truly believe that. And when people would call me about something going on at City Hall, or when they would call me when I was at Clean and Proud and give me something that was going on wrong, even if I didn't give them the answer they wanted, as long as they felt like they were being heard, they were able to accept whatever answer I had to give them. Or if they'd call and say, ask a question and I didn't know the answer, I'd say, I don't know, but let me find out. And when I'd call them back, they're like, you call me back. And I'm like, well, I said I would, but you call me back. And I'm like, yes, I said I would. And what surprised me is that they were surprised when a person did what they said they would do. And I just find that my reputation is very, very important to me. And so when I went to work for the rehab, I asked Jim Pethus, I said, is my opinion important to you? And he said, oh, yeah, I don't micromanage. I get good people and let them do their job. And I'm like, no, sir. I'm asking, is my opinion important to you? If I hear something negative about the rehab, do you want to hear it? If I hear something positive about the rehab, do you want to hear it? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, then I'll give you my answer on Tuesday if I'll come work for you or not. Because I think it is important to be able to express your viewpoint.
Well, you stayed there 16 years, and we figure over time you expressed your viewpoint often.
Maybe once or twice.
But you obviously know how to do that with civility and with the best of outcomes in mind. If you could give America advice today, what advice would you give us?
We've got to go back to knowing that everybody has a purpose, that we've all got to work together to be the best. We are a land of immigrants. My great-grandfather came over from Germany. Where would we be if they had that attitude about a German, for crying out loud, coming into this land? We have to go back. Yes, it's a two-party system right now. Each one has pluses and minuses, in my opinion. That's why I'm neither. But it is a give and take. Everything that I've done, from the Grace to the hotel, didn't end up being what it started out, what was presented initially to the public. There was compromise. Initially, the Grace was going to be the home for the museum and for the Preservation League, until one big donor said, that won't work. So the Preservation League had to stick in there and help raise the brick and mortar money and then turn and walk away from the project.
It takes a lot to sometimes compromise when you feel like it's costing you more than it's costing the other guy, but you have the greater good in mind.
Absolutely.
Where's the greater good in mind in America these days?
When I was on the Keep Texas Beautiful board, I wanted to have an ornament for Keep Texas Beautiful. And the executive director said, it'll never work. And I said, oh, okay.
Well, I laugh because we know where this is headed.
And so Nell Delaney was designing them for the Capitol until Craddock came in, and he wouldn't allow her to even serve on the Preservation Committee, much less continue with the project she started. And I said, oh, Nelda, you're mine. So we designed an ornament, and I took it to the board and said, who wants to play? So I had $3,000 in orders before I left that day and came back to town, and Diane Graves Owen gave me a challenge grant that she would give me money if I could raise $3,000. And I'm like, here you go. And so then I went to Dodge Jones, and Larry Gale said, how come you're asking me for more money than you asked Diane for it? And I said, because your pockets are deeper. So he played along. To this day, well, after 14 years, and I was off the board by then, I'm an emeritus now, so I'm not an active board member. They decided they weren't going to continue on with the program. But we had raised $1.8 million, had brought in $1.8 million.
But you still have the ornaments. They're still being sold every Christmas.
Only place that the ornaments are available is at our Frontier, Texas. The only place. And so if you want any of those historic ornaments that are all symbols of Texas, every one of them is a symbol of Texas. Do you know why we did the hummingbird?
No idea.
Well, the hummingbird is on there because some man told her she couldn't fly.
Beautiful. Love it. Love it. You drew me in with that one. Okay. All right. Donna Albus, I'm going to give you 5 choices. Now, you can choose more than one.
Okay.
But are you a preservationist? Are you an environmentalist? Are you an economic developer? Are you a politician? Or are you a cheerleader?
I'm a charmed individual. I've lived a charmed life. And I guess I've had an opportunity to rub shoulders with some of the best people around, and most of them are women. When I came to Abilene, there was Billy Proctor Shaw and Diane Grace Owen and Peggy Beckham and Betty Ray. Just fabulous women that just, you sit back and watch what they were able to accomplish in this town and get the job done. And so maybe I'm a sponge, that I learned from all these people. And I've had a lot of young women say that I want to be you when I grow up. And so I take that as a very nice compliment. But I didn't do it on my own. I learned from all these people and just followed their example.
Can I even ask how many hats you have? Can I ask it? You don't have to tell me, but can I ask?
Well, I'll tell you like I tell everybody else. I went to an estate sale, and someone said, have you ever seen this many hats? And I said, uh-huh. They said, I bet there are over 300 hats here. And I said, uh-huh.
Haven't thought of Roy Hellenacre in a while, but I think I just did. Okay, so one more question and we'll land it. It's hard to have a better crescendo than what we had a second ago. Just fantastic. But bringing it back to Abilene, I'm not far behind you. And the older we get, the more we know that most of our life is in our rearview mirror, not out in front of us. We know that. I think about it all the time, not in a morbid way, just thinking what kind of memory do I want to leave and what kind of investments am I making? And I don't know that either one of us will be here 20 years from now, but if we're here 20 years from now, my question to you is what kind of changes would you love to see in Abilene? What do you hope for Abilene 20 years down the road?
I want us to continue to honor our history. That if we don't study our history and know from whence we come, how will you know what direction you need to travel? And we have lost so many of our building history that we need to really concentrate and make it last. I'm not opposed to growing, and I'm excited that we're growing, and I'm excited to see that young families are moving back to Abilene because they know it's a great place to raise a family. In fact, I just heard from one group grandmother that I grew up with had moved back from the big city because they wanted to offer their kids an opportunity of growing up and being a individual. And I was offered several jobs in Austin before I retired, and I looked into it. But I thought, I can be a little fish in a big pond, or I can be this fish here in this smaller pond. And I will die here in Abilene. It isn't my hometown, but it became my hometown in 1968. And I love it. People used to ask, what do you do with the chamber? Because I was always promoting Abilene. And I'm like, well, I live in the town. And I am a member of the chamber. I'm a member of the chamber now as an individual, not as a business. And I love this town. And it's been good to me, and it's been good to my boys, who are all three exceptional men, fathers, husbands, providers. And Abilene helped do that. So how can I have anything but fond feelings for a community that has been there for me and my family?
You mentioned a few minutes ago that so many of the movers and shakers that you've known in Abilene are women. Our mutual friend Myra once told me, she's exactly right, that women are the backbone of this town. And that's interesting because, as you have said previously, Abilene's a railroad town. We're tough. Yeah. And that's because I think of the women. And you are right there at the top of the list. Wow.
Tough, huh?
Tough. Well, yeah. Donna Albus, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Well, my pleasure.
Wow. This has been a great conversation. And thank you for joining us here on Abilene People. This is one to remember, one to bookmark. Come back to some of these stories. I want to give a shout out to our ace producer, Travis Corrigan, taking care of business over there on the switcherboard, making sure that everything happens here at Abilene People. And you make sure to join us for the next episode. And again, big thanks to Donna Albus, ace extraordinaire. What do we call her? Preservationist, environmentalist, economic developer, politician, cheerleader, all of those things. Somebody that has made a huge difference in the history, the present, and the future of our city. See you next time here on Abilene People. Thank you.